Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a text that is explicitly designed to challenge, provoke, and pretty much turn everything you might know about traditional morality completely upside down. We're looking at Eduardo Banks' 2024 publication, Liber LXXII Didascaliés Demonión. It's this deeply provocative, poetic text that uses a dark, demonic framework to systematically invert early Christian teachings. So let's jump right in and unpack exactly how the author constructs this absolute philosophy of autonomy. Right off the bat, you're hit with that prominent sigil of Lucifer right there on the cover. The author is adopting this highly subversive, occult visual language. It's like looking at an 18th century grimoire, a classic book of magic. But he isn't actually trying to cast spells here. He's setting a psychological stage. By wrapping his philosophy up in this dark imagery, he's establishing the premise that we are stepping way outside conventional boundaries to challenge early patristic teachings from the ground up. All right, here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at contexto y estrutura literaria, a filosofia da inversão, força, poder e conflito, o desejo e a vontade, and finally, a libertação pela queda. Sección 1. Contexto y estructura literaria. Let's ground this work in reality. Now, looking at that cover, you might be thinking this is some ancient scroll found in a dusty crypt, right? Actually, no. The CIP data and ISBN barcode prove this is a very tangible, copyrighted 2024 book of Brazilian poetry and occultism, published by the Ordem dos Perfectibilistas. The author, Eduardo Banks, wrote this specifically to respond to and essentially argue against early foundational Christian texts like the Didache and the Shepherd of Hermas. It's basically a modern intellectual critique wearing a vintage occult mask. And there's a really specific number anchoring this whole literary structure, 72. Why 72? Well, in occult traditions, specifically within the 17th century grimoire known as the Lemmegeton, there are exactly 72 demons described. Banks uses this existing mythology as his framework. He writes 72 poetic aphorisms and treats each one as a distinct demonic voice delivering a lesson. It's a brilliant structural device to organize his thoughts, honestly. Moving on to Section 2. A filosofia da inversão, flipping values. Okay, so on one side we have the classic Christian doctrine of turning the other cheek, the ultimate symbol of meekness and forgiveness. But then we have Banks's inverted approach. Bate novamente para que aprenda a não dar a outra face. Strike again so they learn not to offer the other cheek. The text argues that unquestioning submission is not a virtue. It's a weakness. By striking again, you are supposedly teaching a harsh but absolutely necessary lesson about the reality of the world and the need for self-defense. This brings us to the foundational premise, laid out right in the prologue by a metaphorical figure called the prostitute, who represents the goddess of humanity. The quote reads, "O fundamento do amor e do ódio está em nós mesmos, naquilo que somos." The foundation of love and hate is within ourselves, in what we are. The text asserts we shouldn't love our neighbor just because a divine rule tells us to, because if we do, are we really acting freely? It claims the roots of all our emotions, whether it's love or hate, lie entirely within our own human nature.
Seção 3. Força, poder e conflito. Self-reliance.
Now, you'd probably expect a philosophy like this to just scream brute force 24/7. But check out this quote from Aphorism 2. A força está na suavidade. Strength lies in softness. It's incredibly nuanced. The text explains that a strong person who constantly shows off their power is actually foolish because they're just inviting an even stronger challenger to come and defeat them. True strength is quiet. It literally doesn't need to constantly prove itself. And the author completely redefines human relationships with these ideas. Look at Aphorism V, which bluntly states, "The dead are food for the living." Or Aphorism 7, which uses the metaphor of the wolf to show that true friends only truly recognize each other when they are entirely independent, when neither needs to use the other. And Aphorism 14 argues you literally can't have a true reconciliation without first having a massive conflict. In this framework, friction and emotional self-sufficiency are the vital drivers of human progress. The philosophy also takes a completely unapologetic stance on material power. Aphorism LV declares, "O homem sem dinheiro é cadáver ambulante." The man without money is a walking corpse. It argues that those who blindly give away their wealth to parasites will eventually become the meal themselves. From Banks's perspective, prospering by cutting off those who drain your resources is philosophically far superior to mindless, self-destructive charity. Section 4. O desejo e a vontade. Embracing human nature. Aphorism XXX drops this intense realization. O desejo do homem é o seu desespero. Man's desire is his despair. But here's the kicker. The text does not view this desire as a sin to be repented. Not at all. Rather, desire is a relentless, creative tempest. The aphorism points out that the minute we finish building something, we eventually destroy it because we get impatient for the next project. Desire causes exhaustion and despair, for sure, but it's exactly what propels the human will forward. This all leans into the idea that our messy, varied nature is fundamentally healthier than any artificial standard. Aphorisms 53 is particularly striking here. It argues that purity actually mutilates us, and that it's the mixture of good, bad, and ugly that makes us healthy and whole. Cutting off parts of ourselves just to appear morally pure only serves to limit our true human potential. All of this culminates in the concept of volupia, or voluptuousness, from aphorism XLI. Now, in this context, it doesn't just mean physical indulgence. It's defined as ultimate self-mastery. To be your own voluptuousness means you are the undisputed author of your own experiences. You take absolute ownership of your pleasure, your pain, your life, and your death. Ask yourself, what does it actually look like to be the undisputed author of your own experiences?
Section 5. A Liberation Delicada, Reframing the Tragedy.
Aphorism LXXII states so proudly, Da nossa queda veio a libertação. From our fall came liberation. The author argues that innocence is actually a prison, and naivety restricts us like a literal cage. According to this text, if you never fall, you never learn to stand on your own 2 feet. It claims that only the fallen one knows what it means to truly jump, run, dance, and live freely, because they finally emancipated themselves from their cosmic tutors. Over and over again, the descent is framed as a massive victory. Aphorism LXXIII claims that a descent is simply a new conquest in the opposite direction. It states beautifully, albeit darkly, that it is only in the depths, in the so-called hells, that a human being truly guards their heart and their unlosable treasures. The heights are exposed to everyone, but the depths, those belong only to you. And because of this fierce independence, the text absolutely rejects anything that even hints at servitude. Aphorism LXXIV states, A guerra é mais agradável do que a paz. War is more pleasant than peace. Why? Because a forced peace usually means submitting to a master. The text boldly claims that seeking forgiveness fundamentally degrades you, and accepting a pardon merely makes you a slave to the one who forgave you. So the conflict of freedom is vastly preferred to the peace of the pastor. Which brings us to the 72nd and final aphorism, echoing that legendary battle cry of rebellion, non serviré, I will not serve. This singular phrase serves as the defiant, conceptual anchor for Eduardo Banks's entire philosophy of absolute autonomy. The very final line of the book notes, demons do not serve and they do not issue orders. They exist entirely for themselves. So here's a thought to leave you with. Does true, absolute freedom genuinely require a fall from grace? Or is the rejection of all structure just another type of prison? Keep questioning and keep learning.